Hello there, everyone. We are back for week two, examining cafe value for FanDuel. Me and I think you know this guy named Jason now by now, if you've been following any of the thousands of podcasts we've done in the first 2 weeks. So, how's it going, Jason?
It's going good. Going good.
Yeah, we ready? We ready to grind this baby out?
I'm ready. I mean, this is our last pod for the week
Mhm.
two.
Yeah, lots of lineup construction, and before we get into this, I mean, this is about our tools. I highly recommend it. I've been using it all weekend, especially. It's especially useful in tournaments. Obviously useful for cash, but I mean, if you're looking to throw 20 to 40 to 60 to 100 lineups in, I think having this type of optimizer tool is pretty much essential. So, just wanted to throw that out there before we get into it. Um, Quarterback, we got Cam Newton, Matthew Stafford, and Eli Manning. Are you generally on an agreement here, or is this something you're looking to fade in certain spots?
No, these are my three favorite quarterbacks for week two. In terms of being on FanDuel, I don't see myself personally going up to a ton of Newton because I like the drop off to Stafford for about 1,200. I like to drop off to Eli for 900. I like that saving. I think that's enough for me to really bump up another tier guy. But it's hard to really argue against Newton in this matchup. I mean, obviously the floor is pretty safe with his rushing ability. He's going to get there and kind of get that safe, 20 points. He's going to do that for you. The one thing I do worry about, nearly a two-score spread. Game flow might be a little bit kind of hindering that upside, I guess you could say, if he's just kind of handing the ball off a lot of kind of let's run and kind of ground the game out in the second half. I could really see that happening. I don't see 49ers really hanging with them and kind of keeping them to put the foot on the gas.
So let's play with that logic for a second. If that is the case, and they blow them out, who should we be on for that Carolina team? Should we be on their defense? Because I guess really the way I view this, the only way Cam's really limited is if there's two pick sixes for Carolina. I mean, other than that, or there's a Mike Tolbert 3 rushing touchdown game or something goofy like that. I don't know. I just feel like if they're blowing them out, it's going to be with Cam, you know?
So I definitely don't disagree. I mean, I think I'm looking here, and it's exactly for those reasons. It could be a defensive touchdown. It could be a special teams touchdown. It could be Jonathan Stewart. It could be that way. And I think if you look at Cam Newton, say he throws for 250 and 2 scores and rushes for 50 yards, great floor there. But I still think if he gets his 2 scores, even 3 scores, I still feel like Matthew Stafford, I still feel like Eli Manning are going to be around the same general outcome coming into the week, and for about 1,000 cheaper.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We're obviously loving what we saw last week with the Lions. Another good matchup here. I think I'm looking at the weapons of Matthew Stafford more so than I am actually looking at Matthew Stafford, if that makes sense. So I like Golden Tate. I like Eric Ebron. I like Marvin Jones. I like getting exposure to them. I like Theo Riddick on DraftKings. Overall, though, I think I might be taking a little bit of a week off from Stafford in terms of his standalone value. I think I just like some guys more, but I'm not going to deny that he's a good, value-based play.
Yeah, I think what you're going to get from him is pretty safe. Do I think he has the ceiling in comparison to Newton or Manning? Probably not. I still think Newton's is higher just giving his rushing ability, and I think Manning has that potential just in a game that could go really back and forth. For 300 more, I think I'd rather take him in terms of GPP upside. But I know you're a little bit kind of with Stafford and Manning, you're looking to get your exposure more through the weapons. You like kind of not going with Eli, but getting Odell Beckham, and you think that's going to be what covers it for the Giants.
Certainly. And I'm okay with getting, a Sterling Shepard as well. Something like that. That's fun. I also like getting, if you can on FanDuel, obviously you love the running backs here, and we'll talk about him in a second, but I love getting Rashad Jennings as exposure to this Giants team. So while I do like Stafford and Eli this week, I just think it might be a little easier for me to get exposure to the weapons around them rather than them themselves.
I think what I've seen a lot of so far is people from our forums and what people have been posting. It's they have Newton in there, and then they're punting somewhere else. They're going down to a tight end. They still have, they want all those pieces. They want C.J. Anderson. They want Odell Beckham. But you drop Newton down to a Stafford. You're moving up from a Jesse James to an Eric Ebron. You're moving up from a Chargers defense or to a better defense, a Patriots or Packers defense. So I feel like those pieces those outweigh me using Newton, I think.
That's fair. That's fair, certainly.
But all three great options. I think all formats, I like them quite a bit.
Now, running back is where things get exciting. D'Angelo Williams, Rashad Jennings, Danny Woodhead. I love all these guys. I think Danny Woodhead's in play on FanDuel this week. Tough to fit Jennings and Woodhead in with D'Angelo Williams, and I think C.J. Anderson should be on this list. Personally, he's my number one this week. So D'Angelo and C.J. Anderson are going to be in, honestly, 70% of my lineups this week. But if you're looking to dive down, as you mentioned, you have a Cam Newton and you want to get those high-end receivers in, Jennings and Woodhead are certainly a nice way to do it.
Yeah, they definitely are. I like Danny Woodhead. I like the price here. 6,400. Obviously, we look at guys who are like that with PPR scoring. You obviously like him more on DraftKings, but you know what? I think that floor is pretty damn safe here on FanDuel as well, just with how he's going to be used and all the targets he's going to get. And you also look. I don't think really anyone on Jacksonville is going to be able to stop Woodhead, even though they know what's coming, because they're still going to have to be wary of the other wide receivers. I know Allen's gone, but I think that just shifts a lot of focus to guys like Antonio Gates. Travis Benjamin's going to get some love there too as well. But Woodhead, we know, is just going to be the guy they get really creative with, line him up in the slot, use him out of the backfield, and even run the ball with him.
Yep. So that's pretty simple. Love Rashad Jennings. I think he's a great play and sort of hedge off the top options. I think he could, have 20 points in a high end range of outcomes type of way.
I do too, because I could actually see the Giants leading most of this game. Yep. I really could. I just think they're going to score at will. It's going to force New Orleans to throw the ball. But I just think with the Giants being up ahead, we saw Jennings, get a reasonable amount of carries in week 1 there. And there were talks about him getting heavier workload with the Giants in 2016. And so far that's been the case. I think week 2, we'll see how that goes. Unless the Giants defense really comes out and just falls flat and they get behind, that could be an issue. But obviously I do think the Giants kind of take hold of this game pretty much in general.
Next grouping here, pretty straightforward. Antonio Brown, Doug Baldwin, Odell Beckham. I'm not touching Baldwin with the Russell Wilson stuff going on this week. Brown, Beckham, best 2 players on this slate overall.
There's, I look at here and I'm going, okay. For me, it just kind of says they're great values on FanDuel because it is a little bit easier to build a lineup with both of them in. If you wanted to go that route, it just feels like it's easier to kind of pay off their price tags. I think they do. Beckham's more expensive by 200. I have OBJ just slightly higher because I do love that matchup against the Saints secondary. Brown has gone somewhat quiet against Cincinnati, but he's just one of those freak athletes where 152 touchdowns isn't out of the question. In terms of Baldwin, obviously the price, $7K, is reasonable. I think that's more the reason why he's here. It's not really the matchup. I'm looking at Seattle. I don't like the team total. It's sitting pretty low. As you mentioned, Wilson, not really 100%. Should be staying in the pocket to throw the ball, but I kind of see this one as trying to play a lot of defense, run the ball, kind of just an ugly, grinded out victory. I don't see them really trying to go for the throat and airing things out.
No, I don't either, and I don't think they need to. So I love Doug Baldwin. Let's wait till Russell Wilson gets, fully healthy, or we at least see him what he looks like on this ankle. That's all I ask. You can still play him, but at least be wary. Wary.
Woolly.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Tight ends. Delaney Walker, Antonio Gates, Jordan Reed. I would also throw Jesse James in there as a guy you want to at least, think about. But in terms of options that actually cost something and are actually in reasonable roles and offenses, I think these are the guys you're looking at.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not looking to get a ton of Jordan Reed this week. $7,400 is kind of pricey for me. I rather kind of spend my money elsewhere. The Antonio Gates, Delaney Walker tier is about as high as I'm going to be going. I like Walker here on FanDuel. I mentioned last week that I'm usually more on him on DraftKings, but I think FanDuel this week with the matchup, we saw Detroit really struggle with tight ends last year. We saw it in week one. They allowed 3 touchdowns to a combination of Jack Doyle and Dwayne Allen. I think Walker's going to get a lot of targets here, just like how he did last year. And I think they're going to be chasing this game from behind. Walker's my favorite option. I do prefer him over Gates, but I think if you need that 700 savings for something else, Gates is still a fine option because the targets are going to shift a little bit more his way. We know his report with Phillip Rivers. I think you're going to see kind of a rebound week from most of those guys there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I love that Gates value for sure at 59. I think that's, one of the better values on the slate, especially with how I think that game's going to play out. Defense. Chargers back in our good graces. Just kidding. But they have been in both of our cafe values for this week. Is that something you're looking at, or is that kind of like the Raiders against the Saints last week where it might say something about them long term, but in this matchup specifically, probably not?
I don't think in this matchup I can get behind them. We talked about how they really need to pay off that price tag or to kind of pay off because they're going to give up 21 plus points. I don't see any way around it. And I just think a pick six is going to be needed, and how odds favoring that happening, probably not very good. Because, I mean, obviously, how many times do we actually see that happen on a weekly basis? Bortles, is turnover prone. I can definitely see them getting a pick or two. But is that going to add up enough to, balance out the fact that they're going to give up 20-plus points? I don't think so. And with New England being right there for 500 more, I'm going to take them at home, being the safer option against a much weaker offense. That's just kind of how I see going. I get the bare minimum play there. 4K. It saves you some money, but I don't see myself really going that route.
I agree. I'm not playing the Chiefs either. That's the other defense mentioned here. I'm looking at Patriots, Ravens, Packers, and paying up for Arizona, Panthers. Those are the defenses I'm looking at, and I'm fairly confident in that. And in terms of, how lineup construction works on this site this week, I don't think you necessarily need to kill yourself because once you sort of get down from that tier, below 6K in both running back and receiver, there isn't much. So it's not like you're stretching to, get that last, extra premium guy. It's kind of like you got to play a little more balanced in terms of diving too deep this week.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm definitely in agreement. I think overall the lineup construction goes, especially more here on FanDuel, I think those value plays are pretty obvious to kind of how you should set up for the rest of your kind of top price guys.
Certainly. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. Thanks for checking this out, guys. As always, check out Daily Fantasy Cafe for all our awesome tools and content. And if you do enjoy our pod, like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're certainly not against that. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in week 3.